So let's acquaint somebody.
There's 11 on the thing. The guy across the street, he had, there was a neighbor south of me had one. Lady living in my apartment complex, I came close to which is bigger battery. The landlord, very close. Nope, they would be close enough to that. The one across the street, I parked my bike in the street, go in the house. And he has one of these magnetic screens. And like his dog come running through the screen.
Have you seen that screen
Here you go. Think about running for a feet.
He can read his flights that he's done and they're
Well,
not.
they track everything. His flight.
I had 2 dogs killed by a pit bull. She got bit and had to go through the rabies thing.
These things only fly on one.
5 days.
Can you guys hear me in the council chambers?
Yes, Barry.
Yes, we can. Can you hear us? Craig, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Thanks, Craig.
I've never had a roll call in the last 13 years. Not much of that either. And everybody on that side. Being a lawyer.
Greg's good, but Jeff.
Excuse me, was a question asked of me? This is Greg.
Yeah, we can hear you, Greg.
Okay.
Another one. Okay. Thank you. I don't know. I've shown that plate. Good evening. Let's call the meeting to order here. We are in the City Council chambers at 10 West State Street, Marshalltown. The date's September 9, 2024. Time is 5:30 p.m. And before calling, let's call the meeting to order at this time, and would those able join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Roll call, please.
Fonseca? Here. Kell?
Here.
Lottiehoff?
Here.
Mitchell?
Here.
Nichols?
Here.
Schneider?
Here.
Thompson?
Not here yet, but we do have a quorum, so let's get started. The first item is public comment, so let me start with the usual proviso that members of the public may make comments on any item that was not on the agenda. State your name, approach the mic, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes unless I authorize longer. Direct your comments to the mayor and council as a whole, and the council and mayor are not to engage in discussion or debate on any items raised by members of the public at this time, and no action may be taken on those items. Otherwise, we might fall outside the open meetings laws as they are required. With that said, the microphone is open.
Good evening. How are y'all today? Dave Grieve, 2327 South 5th Avenue and 128 East Main, Doodah's Diner. I'm kind of here today for Doodah's. We've finally got it figured out how we can offer a little discount to our police force and fire department and active military by offering free drinks. I mean, it's the best we can do with a code law. And so on duty or off duty, if you show a badge or an ID, if you're active military, can't do veterans, there's too many veterans in town, everybody would get free drinks. So active duty military, police, and fire, the people that run into danger. I'm an old dirt biker, I love those guys. So they can have free drinks at Doodah's. So anyway, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dave. I can't help but comment that if you were a bar, that'd be really expensive.
Yes.
And by the way, I had a really good brunch there.
Oh, good.
Last week.
Good.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, on to the next item of business. Mayor, council, and administrative comments. I need to have you switch those around because I always go last. Anybody up here like to make any comments?
Your Honor, if I may?
You may.
Yes, we attended the 13th Street this weekend, and another successful 13th Street showing. They do an excellent job down there, and kudos go out to them again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I?
You sure may.
I was volunteering at the Harvest Market as well, and I attended, and I was at the Yes Committee Miller Bond booth, and it was great to give the community information on, you know, what that all will entail, and providing a frequently asked questions flyer for the public, and any questions that they had were answered, and blueprints of the school, like what it would be, reimagining Miller, were shown, and also like there were vendors, and it was just a really good time.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else?
Your Honor?
Yes.
I was also down at 13th Street helping out, but I also got to enjoy it. And I was just thinking the whole time, you know, this is what makes Marshalltown special. I probably talked to 200 people, you know, friends I haven't seen for a while that I got to catch up with, and, you know, probably 100 other people that I just saw that I didn't get to talk to. But it really was a magical evening, and, you know, it's the people of Marshalltown that make it great, and I just wanted to let everybody know that that's what I thought.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well,
Your Honor, sorry, may I again? Sorry.
sure.
Also, my Marshalltown team had a cleanup event at West End Park on Sunday, yesterday, and just for all the public, I knew that the park was very clean when we went, but there's always those little things like forks and pieces of just anything, and we picked all that up and just gave it another run through, and yeah, it was all open to everybody, and we had a good dozen people, and so it was a cleanup and potluck after, so good time.
Very good. It has come alive, that 13th Street has. And I think I posted recently about the fact that I know the school district is interested in taking the track there back to its original splendor. And so if we can get that Miller bond issue done, we'll get to see the final touches on that track. My wife and I went and ran there last week, and boy, it has deteriorated to the point where it's not very safe, and I'm not very fast. But it had been a big historical place. The first broadcast football game ever in the country was here. I see the radio stations represented here tonight. And I know the superintendent and the school board are interested in perking it up even more. But it would not have ever started without having a group of neighborhood folks and investors that made 13th Street pop. So that was pretty cool. But the real thing I wanted to do tonight was introduce our new city administrator, Carol Webb, who is sitting up here for the first time. So for those of you watching out in the public, this is Carol. She comes from, she grew up on a dairy farm near I was going to say Council Bluffs. Tumwa, sorry.
That's where I was born.
Yeah. Could have gone to medical school, ended up getting into biology, chemistry, that sort of thing, was hired out in Colorado in a pretty place out there, and was talked into working for a city, got her master's degree in public administration, and we get her from Muscatine after having 4 years there. They were what I've called to people privately a hot mess when she showed up there, because things were in disarray. The council and the city administrator did not get along. One was fired. The city attorney lost his license for a while as part of that fiasco over there, and so she took that on as a challenge, and got those folks straightened away, and we're just tickled to have her here. My question of her when we interviewed was, are you just here for Springboard and you're going on to the next best thing? And the answer was the right one. No, she'd really like to make this, her family would like to make this the last place. And there's a shot at it because both sisters are within pretty good driving distance. One of them took her over she took her sister over to the Iowa State game last weekend. And so we hope to have many years of having Carol here. So welcome. Yeah. And now it's your turn to talk if you'd like rebuttal. All right, let's go on to the consent agenda. Does anybody move to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Nichols? Here. Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Fonseca?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Bodyhoff?
Yes.
Very good. Now's the time when I'd ordinarily ask our clerk to read all of those things, and we get to dispense with that. And we forgot to have the pool tonight on whom we're going to end. I forgot that. On to resolutions. What's our first one?
We have a public hearing and resolution 2024-197 to approve the urban renewal plan amendment for the Marshalltown Urban Renewal Area Number 3.
Start the public hearing. I'll declare that it's open now, and the time is 5:39 p.m. I'll assume you didn't get any written comments on this one at the clerk's office.
No, Your Honor.
It's time for public comment before staff review. Any public comment on this one? Time for staff review then. Cindy.
Cindy Kendall, consultant for the city. I'm working in the area of economic development as we bring the Area Number 3 project to you for the Veterans Clinic. That will be an addition which the state law requires us to include in each of our urban plans now by project. So this will be the culmination of with the public hearing and final passage for that amendment.
Thank you. Time for council comments. I'll declare the public hearing is closed at 5:40 p.m. Are we soliciting a motion on this one?
Yes. Move for
We are.
approval, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Roll call.
Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider? Fonseca?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Bodyhoff?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. And seeing Cindy Kendall at the microphone reminded me I should have mentioned her again too. Cindy, we have to thank you for the last few months of serving as the de facto city administrator. As those of everybody up here knows, I had no clue what I was doing when I was supposed to be the acting city administrator. And Cindy has just really helped us out, bailed us out of some significant challenges with issuing permits and not having a planning person here. And she's also been kind enough to stick around so that the two can learn from each other and share information. So thank you. Okay, on to the next one.
Public hearing and resolution 2024-198, providing for the vacation and conveyance and transfer of the north-south alley between 406 and 408 West Madison Street.
Public hearing's open at 5:41 p.m. I'll bet you didn't get any written comments on this one either.
No, Your Honor.
I'll bet nobody in the public wants to comment on this non-controversial item. Nobody's jumping up. And so staff review.
Yes, Your Honor. The city received a request to vacate the north-south alley between 406 and 408 West Madison Street up to the east-west alley. The adjacent property owners have agreed to purchase the right-of-way for the price of $250 apiece, and that is per the City of Marshalltown sales surplus property policy.
Thank you. Time for council comments on this one. The public hearing is closed at 5:42 and solicit a motion.
Move for approval, Your Honor.
Second.
Roll call.
Kell?
Yes.
Bodyhoff?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Fonseca?
Yes.
That carried. And our third and last one is an ordinance. What's that one?
Public hearing and ordinance 15091 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, Chapter 156, zoning for parking, loading, and stacking.
Floor is open for a motion to approve it on the first reading.
We have a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see that part. Let's declare the public hearing is open at 5:43 p.m. Any written comments?
No, Your Honor.
Any public comments? Staff review.
As you know, John Boston, 1710 Rainbow Drive, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission. This is part of the Chapter 72 changes to get the two of them in alignment. The main changes were making the parking spaces consistent. We had different places in different ordinances where a parking space was defined as different lengths and widths. It's standardized out at 9 feet by 18 feet. We changed the maximum parking in residential from 4 to 6 because the ordinance actually had wording that said it did not count the driveway in front of your garage door as a parking place. And we've always intended that to be a parking place, so we changed that. It says it is allowed and is counted, and so the count went from 4 to 6. We also changed the number of maximum parking spaces allowed for a number of commercial locations, for example, Quick Stars and Casey's and that type of thing, as I mentioned before, where they typically want in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 parking places, and the ordinance was only going to allow like 22 to 25. We also changed a number of the government locations to eliminate the maximums entirely. So this isn't where the significant changes were made in Chapter 72, but we wanted to coordinate them. So, any questions?
Any questions from the council? Because it's time for council comments. Declare that public hearing closed at 5:45 p.m. and now solicit a motion to approve.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. On to discussion items. What's our first one of those?
we have 2 more ordinances to read
I
through.
missed, oh, that's why I missed the public hearing.
Ordinance 15092 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa by repealing Chapter 72 parking rules and adopting a new code sections for Chapter 72 parking rules. First reading.
Move for approval, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And discussion.
Heather Thomas, Public Works. This is going to be the first reading of Chapter 72. We talked about Chapter 72 quite a bit in the February-March timeframe, and the direction from council was to go ahead and get some input from planning and zoning. We have that now. At our last meeting during the discussion item, we went over kind of those highlights. One thing that has changed since last meeting is we were talking about changing the parking fine for late penalty. We are not able to do that based on legal counsel. So it will remain a $5 late fee after 30 days and not go to the 15 after 60. Additionally, I believe we have one counselor who would like to make a comment, a potential recommendation for a change. So I'll turn that over to Counselor Schneider.
Thanks, Heather. So I talked with Heather and John early in the discussions of this. We were talking about having the ability for residences to have a paved parking slab in the back for like a trailer or a boat or something. That was removed by planning and zoning. What I would like to do is propose that for lots over 1 acre, we reinstate that ability for a homeowner who wants to be responsible, who has a trailer, who wants to use it for hauling stuff to the compost or has a boat, and doesn't want to leave it in their driveway, give them the ability to be in compliance with our ordinances. So I think we should add some language back in to allow for a slab of concrete that's not attached to a driveway or road. If you think about somebody in town with a property of 1 acre or 1.5 acres, I mean, they could have a 200-foot driveway just to get back to a slab to park a trailer. I think that's a little too onerous and they end up ruining their yard. I know planning and zoning had looked, and some of the things that were in there, like maximum of 6 times a year or causing ruts in the yard, those are a little too subjective. I think we leave those out. Maybe we could formulate some language that says there's no, permanent visible ruts from traffic in and out, not used for commercial vehicles. So these would just be personal trailers, personal boats, or operable vehicle like an RV or truck that you use on occasion. So I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in if they think they want to do that. I'd like to formalize a motion, but maybe I'd like to hear what other people want to do first.
Yeah, before any motion to amend is filed, let's go ahead and open that up for discussion. Anybody up here want to address that?
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Jeff, you're talking about no commercial vehicles in the private drives. Is that what I got right?
No, this would be for, say, a 12 by 24 slab in the back of somebody's yard who has over an acre that doesn't have access to an alley, who the slab will be away from the road, just so they can take care of, their trailers, boats, vehicles that they use infrequently, and, keep them out of the public eye at the back of their property. There's no way in this ordinance to legally allow for that.
Your Honor, if I may?
Sure.
I don't know if we should eliminate just for an acre or more. There's a lot of people that have 3/4 of an acre that have small utility trailers that should be able to have the same situation then.
I'd be okay with that, Mark. I mean, I think we might even be able to go down to a half acre. I don't know if we have any data that we could base a decision off of, but I do think it'd be far too expensive, and it would ruin a lot of people's yards to have to pour a concrete driveway back to a slab just to park something that's infrequently used.
Thank you, Jeff.
Other comments by council? Let's go to public comment.
John Boston, 1710 Rainbow Drive. I have one suggestion. If you do this, don't say dimensions. Don't say it's 9 by 24. Give people an option to make it whatever they want by saying square feet. That way, if they have a situation where they want a longer, narrower, or a shorter, wider, they can do it based on the number of square feet instead of locking them into a 12 by 24. So.
Lonnie Hoagland, 1408 East Main. I think the objective here is to clean up the town, and I'm not trying to solicit any business in any way, but you've got to be careful. You're trying to change driveway stuff, but you just need to somehow implement that the cars parked on this slab that you're saying could be in the backyard needs to be runnable, and just let the citizens know that you don't want junk in the driveways. That's your goal, I believe.
Anyone else? Oh, good.
If public comment is done, I just wanted to summarize the comments I heard from council for a possible amendment. We initially started with a proposal of lots over 1 acre. I think that's been reduced to a half an acre. Disconnected parking stall meeting Chapter 72 material requirements, being a hard surface, gravel not allowed, not for commercial vehicles, maintained without ruts, maximum size of 12 by 24 slab, which with John Boston's comment of using square foot, I believe that's 188 square feet. So those would be the points for discussion, whether that wants to be an amended ordinance.
I think you capsulized that pretty well. Jeff, or does anyone else want to make a motion to amend?
Could I make a motion that we direct staff to come back with a formal recommendation so that we know exactly what we're talking about? And I would also like to say that maybe give staff a little leeway on what that square footage number is. I just, drew that number up in my head thinking, you could park a trailer and a boat, but maybe we do need more square footage, or maybe that's proportional to the lot size. If that's the case, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to look into that and bring a proposal back at our next reading. That's okay.
It is. I'll probably treat that as a motion to table. Is there a second to that motion to table to allow staff to come back with another suggestion before we vote on the first reading?
Your Honor.
Second.
But there's time for discussion? Okay. That's all right. Sorry. Let's call the roll on the motion to table.
Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Fonseca?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottie Hoff?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
It is tabled. And thank you, John, again, for all the work you do on your planning and zoning. We've kept you pretty busy the last few years. Yikes. Okay, what's our next matter?
Ordinance 15093, amending ordinance number 13657 relating to partial property tax exemptions for industrial property on which improvements have been made, providing a schedule of tax exemption and setting for the procedure to obtain same. First reading.
And we're looking for a motion, or?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve that?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Time for discussion.
This again is an updating of a 1980s ordinance for the industrial abatement program in the community. This will include more different, more modern economic development things such as research parks, maybe some warehousing and so forth, to bring us up to the equivalent of what is allowed through the state code. But we have to do it by ordinance in order to allow that kind of an abatement within Marshalltown.
Thank you. Discussion by the council? Public comment? Let's vote on the first reading.
Fonseca? Yes. Kell?
Yes.
Lottie Hoff?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider? Schneider?
You're muted, Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. now
Yes,
we do.
thank you.
Thank you. That carried. All right. Next item.
We have our first discussion item, restricted downtown parking on street.
Who wants to take the lead on this one? I see Heather coming up again.
Heather Thomas, Public Works. This was an item that was requested to be put on the agenda for discussion tonight related to part of our ordinance currently that prohibits, oops, it's not open yet, just a sec, apologize. Prohibits parking on some of the downtown streets from 2:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the morning. On the map that we have in front of us, some of the yellow lines basically indicating from Church Street to State Street, including Main Street, from 2nd Street over to 3rd Ave. All of that area has currently a restricted parking between 2:30 and 5:30 in the morning. Part of that reason was to get vehicles off the street and into the public parking lots. If you recall a discussion from November, December of last year, when we talked about revising our public parking lot schedules, we switched from restricted parking where they were limited to 24 hours in our public parking lots to 72 hours is what it is now. We also removed some of the, you can only park in this half of the lot these mornings and the other half the other morning. And so the intent of that, based on what council provided us, was to get vehicles off the streets and into the public parking lots. So this is currently a map of where we have restricted parking from 2:30 to 5:30 in the morning. We did go ahead and take a look at other communities as well, and there's a mix. There's definitely other communities like Ames, who has several hours of restricted parking as well in their downtown area. There are some that have parking meters. There are some that have fee-based permits for downtown parking. So it kind of, I would say there's not a best practice necessarily. It's kind of across the board. One of the reasons they have those hours in the morning is to allow maintenance to the road. That can be anything from street sweeping, pavement marking, snow removal, pothole patching, repairing curbs, getting equipment in to take care of signage, and those kind of things. So that 3 hour that we have downtown is what allows our staff to come in. They usually come in about 2 o'clock in the morning to do the work that they do in the CBD area. So I will open that up for discussion.
Okay, the mic is open for discussion. Anyone
Oh,
up here?
Heather, this is a question. Greg Nichols, this is a question for you. So what are your thoughts on like what Ottumwa does with an hour limit and then it's posted as a snow route so that that's not a battle? Because that seems like a legitimate battle for keeping that clean.
Yeah, so the downside to doing that is that there are more activities than just snow that we need access to the street for. Also, in Marshalltown, we don't issue snow emergency alerts, typically unless we have about a 2-inch snowfall. So there's a lot of the smaller snowfalls that we still, the public still expects our department to go in and clear the street. So the more cars that are in the parking areas on the street, the less effective we are with our motor graders that clear the snow downtown to get in and around vehicles. It can become a challenge.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments by the council before we open up to the public? You may.
We've been encouraging downtown housing for quite a while, and it's really been working out good. And I know that there's quite a few people living there up above the stores and that, and it's a really good thing. What I'm concerned about is if they have a guest. I know at Lennox, years ago when we did the air conditioning whole end of the building, the neighborhood was swamped with cars, which pretty much made the neighborhood pretty mad, all those little brick houses. But the brick houses were given, each of them were given 1 or 2 permits, that if somebody comes over, they can give them that permit and they put it in the window. So they could still park there for just that one time. And then, of course, they give it back to the homeowner. I would like to see something like that tried. That's my own opinion. I think we need to, if we're going to encourage people to live downtown, if you want to have a friend or a guest over overnight, you want to show them the place, you want to show them downtown, but if they don't have a place that they can park, that gets pretty tough. So that's my opinion. I'm welcome to other people's opinion.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I guess my initial thought to those comments are we're placing probably a heavy burden on the police department to help enforce. We're engaging city staff to issue permits or whatever it might be. It seems like it could have the potential of a lot of additional work for maybe a marginal benefit. I think the city has outlined the need, though probably relatively infrequent, but the need for access to those roads in certain times. And the staff's willing to come in early. If we truly want to explore this, it probably won't make everyone happy, but if it's about promoting people going downtown and it's about guests coming in those places, we're probably talking weekends. I don't know how frequently you bring in city staff on the weekends to do anything.
Only in snow events.
So, I mean, I don't know if that's a better middle ground, but I just fear the position we'll be putting the police department and other city staff in if we start to form exceptions or try something out different. But maybe it's completely doable.
Anybody else from the council want to weigh in? Not hearing anybody, let's go to public comment. Anybody want to suggest by way of motion to the staff what direction they should proceed in?
I'll probably get shot down, but I would make the motion that the city staff bring back permitting system. And what I mean is the reusable, you don't pay for them. That the dwellers of the apartments can keep, but it's not for the people who live there. It would just be it'd be like a guest setup or something that they can put in there up on their dash so the police can see it. so the police know. And I think something like that. You look puzzled.
I might defer to Alicia. There is some language about a permit system currently in our 72.
Yeah, in 72, there is a exception that we can issue a permit. However, it does not outline the guidelines for that and who should be issued a permit. So there is some clarification that would be needed to that section. And we do also have permit parking in other areas of town around the high school and down by Lenox. That's still in place. So property owners are issued sticker permits that they have to put on every vehicle for every for the residents. And then there are guest parking permits, like you spoke about, that we give to the homeowner, that if anybody's visiting their house, they put that on their dashboard in those areas. But those are all assigned for permit parking specifically.
Your Honor, Counsel Julie Miller, 30 East Main Street, Marshalltown. To the permit process, I think that the visitation part, I just had visitors to my loft that stayed for the weekend. I did tell them where they had to park safely so that they wouldn't get a ticket. It's not convenient, but that's a very, very short thing that happens and not very often for me. I think the biggest problem, as I'd stated in the last month, is that the safe parking under lights. Obviously, no one else in Marshalltown got up to speak on this as a problem. That tells me that they have safe parking, whether it's the buildings that have established parking and behind safe lit parking. So that tells me that, like the Gallery Garden area, they have some parking designated for them. I did talk to Barb Hagstrand. So other downtown dwellings already have safe, lit, comfortable parking that they're happy with, obviously, or they'd be here, because I did talk to them. So I think if you don't make exceptions for people who've put a lot of money into their buildings, their downtown dwelling, and the things that I've brought up in the last month, I feel like we're not, for an ordinance of street cleaning and the minimal that we're talking about for residents' safety and a dwelling that I guess is encouraged but discouraged. I feel very discouraged because I thought at least we could have maybe 3 parking permits along the courthouse, not on Main Street necessarily. I don't have to have Rockstar parking, but something safer than J parking between 2 bars late at night. So I don't think I'm asking for the blue sky, just something. And if I'm the only business owner downtown that finds this to be a big problem, I think there could be an exception. If all the ends of all the apartments, forward and back, east and west, are happy, and they haven't come up, then I would like you to consider again. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. I want to commend the parking is uniform when we have alternate parking, and it's uniform throughout the whole city. No parking Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It's uniform that way. And I think that's a good thing. But a situation just like the last person spoke about, that needs to be addressed. We need to have better lighting. We need that. That's important. We all want to feel safe in the community. And as far as making more work for our police department, I really don't want to do that, but I want to feel safe in my city. So thank you all.
Anyone else? I haven't driven State Street at night to specifically look at if the lighting is different now that we're getting it fixed up. And I wonder what's going to happen on Main Street.
The lighting that you have along State Street was installed after the tornado, and for the most part, we were able to utilize the existing street poles with maybe about 3 of them that we had to relocate.
How about the Main Street ones? And are we starting over, or will we use the same existing poles there?
Based on council direction at one of our previous meetings, we've been directed to select new poles, both for street lighting and pedestrian lighting on that project.
Any idea if we're going to have a lot more lumens for people that are parking on Main Street then when this is done?
I think the difference that you'll notice right now is we have two-headed street lights, but they're both at the second story level. So in the evenings, we have both of those lights on, but as it gets later, we turn off the sidewalk side of them, and it remains off until the daylight of the next morning. As we're exploring new street lights for the Main Street project, we're looking at both street and pedestrian lights. So those pedestrian lights are usually brought down at a lower level so that it doesn't interfere with second story or upper living. And so that might provide some additional foot candles for the sidewalks.
So question, Heather,
Yeah, go
what
ahead.
about the parking lot that's in the back? I mean, the dark place, if I understand correctly, is really from the backside.
Greg, I'm going to show a couple of photos I brought just in case we got into those discussions. So this one here is actually the parking lot that we have across the street that we are planning on doing some work with potentially as the next discussion item. It doesn't look terrible in this picture because it looks better in the picture than it did in person. And then right after I took this picture, for whatever reason, these two lights turned off and it was a little bit darker. So there is definitely a concern in some of the parking lots about lighting. We are trying to address that in this next project that's coming up. The parking lot J, which is the one that I believe the previous citizen spoke of, I know there is one parking lot light in that lot. But I'd say that there may be potential in the future if council gave us direction to see what it would take to add additional lighting in the parking lot. I think as I used to work over in that area and park in that area when it was dark at times, the concern for me when I was over there was not necessarily the parking lot itself, but some of the east-west alley where those buildings jet in and out. That's the area that to me felt a little sketchier than the parking lot. As well. So as I go through here as a backup, we start getting into some of the influence from the street lights. As I look down State Street, Mayor Greer, those are the street lights that are there today that were put in after the tornado. And as you can see, there's sufficient light there to feel comfortable, I believe, along State Street. As we go into the Veterans Courtyard, this probably is still getting some influence from the State Street lighting. But you also can see a couple of security lights over the Coliseum doors. As we go down into...
Don't we even have a light now above the pickleball court?
There is, but I can't remember what time they turn that off, if it's 11 p.m. or somewhere around that time. But it's a very bright light above the
I was just surprised
pickleball.
not to see it brighter in
Yeah.
the picture. Okay.
It was not on in that picture. I took those early in the morning. This location is kind of the areas that I'm talking about in the alleys. You can see the buildings are indented. It provides more shadows. There are containers, trash receptacles, and those kind of things behind the buildings, especially in the east-west direction.
Is this the north-south alley?
This is, yep. You can
Looking
kind of
to the
see
south?
the MCBD alley further along in the picture as well. As you turn to go left, this is not an uncommon sight on some of these buildings. In fact, many of the buildings I looked at did have exterior lighting on their buildings. They were just off. So this building had all of them off. We had several buildings that 2 of them were on, 2 of them were off. So I think there's an opportunity maybe for some outreach and potential future projects to working with private owners of buildings adjacent to alleys to get some of these lighting things improved. I know we had some discussion with that internally in some of our meetings with the Chamber and MCBD as we talked about the Main Street project. And then, like I said, as we turn another direction in the alley, again, you can see a lot of the shadows, and with all the ins and outs of the buildings behind the buildings, I think that's the part to me that provides the most concern. So I think getting additional lighting in the alleys is definitely something that the council could consider in future discussion.
Exactly. Thank you. There was a group that looked at that alley just to the west of us here that goes from the alley that goes behind us to Main Street, trying to figure out a way to make that similar to the one that's between the Tremont and Waxahachie to make it a nice walkable sidewalk. I can see Jim Johnson out here as kind of the spearhead of that alley, and so there's interest. I know there's interest in doing that for the downtown business owners, and especially those that have the second story living spaces that we're trying to encourage more of. Reminds me of the time we had the people from the co-op come in and say they really needed another street light out there. And that didn't take much work or cost, as I recall. We were able to put a street light in for the people that were walking at night or had buggies or whatever. So I would bet there would be significant interest in putting more lighting in the alleys and parking lots.
Your Honor?
Yes.
As most discussions happen, we have a tangent, which I think is good. I think we need to decide, is this safety, is this convenience, or is it both? If it's safety, it's something we can take action on without an ordinance rewrite. If it's convenience related or helping bring people downtown, that probably takes a little deeper look, but I don't think anyone up here, at least from my perspective, is going to argue the need for safer alleyways.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Heather, do you think there's adequate parking for not only the residents overnight, but for guests in the existing alleys or the existing parking lots that we have?
I do. I do understand the concerns from some of them wanting to park closer to the building. A property owner not far off from one that spoke earlier had brought this concern to me earlier this year, and I worked with them to identify a parking lot that was in the vicinity that they felt was safer. So they're actually parking in Marshall County's lot on the east side of First Ave. That has a little bit more light between that building and the building that they were concerned about getting people in early in the morning. So that might be an option for the citizen that spoke earlier, feeling a little bit more comfortable and safe walking from that parking lot to their building at night.
Thank you.
So Heather, is really the issue inadequate lighting on some of that so that it's just a dark, shadowy, kind of ominous type place that they don't feel safe? Is that the primary issue on those back alleyways? Because that's how I see it, but you tell me what you think.
That's how I see it as well.
I have to throw something.
Well, I guess I'd support. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
So I'd kind of support the concept of improving the lighting back there, especially in light of the fact that Main Street is going to be tore up in the very near future. We want to encourage both access to the businesses from the backside and safety for the residents. That seems like like Barry said, a non-ordinance fix that we could look into and figure out a best way.
Thank you. I was going to throw in, well, I will throw in too. It seems like what maybe sparked this was getting a ticket late at night that I'll bet if the officer knew what was going on, wouldn't have been written or might have been torn up later. The lawyer in me would want to have maybe taken that to a magistrate to see if a magistrate might agree. But we are trying to ask for more downtown living second story, and as long as we're tearing up a main street, let's figure out how to do this so it works for everybody. Meanwhile, there isn't really a motion on the floor to direct staff to do much of anything.
Lottie Hoff did make a motion.
I'm sorry? Oh, you did?
Lottie Hoff made a motion for staff to bring back a permitting system for upstairs apartments.
But there's no second.
No second.
Okay, well, let me call for a second if there is one.
Second.
Okay. We've probably had enough discussion. Let's go ahead and call the roll, yes or no, on the direction to staff.
Kell.
Yes.
Lottie Hoff.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Fonseca.
Yes.
Carried. Staff has its direction. Thank you. Now, Parking lot T. I tried to find the map to figure out which one that was, and I couldn't find it. Well, it was a different map than I could find.
Heather Thomas, Public Works again. This is the parking lot that we had discussions on late last year and earlier this year. Initially, the city was awarded sponsored project funds where this parking lot was slated to get a massive renovation similar to that behind the Tremont, where this parking lot was planned to have stormwater containment underneath as well as permeable pavers as a surfacing material. Earlier this year, we had the opportunity to apply for and were offered a $2 million loan forgiveness associated with our water pollution control headworks project and the sewer CIPP project that we have going on. That resulted in $2.7 million of savings over the life of that loan, which far exceeded the sponsored project money that we were awarded for this parking lot. Council provided direction to us to go ahead and go with the loan forgiveness, which took away the sponsored project funds. We'd previously gone out for general obligation bonds to provide for some of the funds for this parking lot and a pedestrian alley in the amount of $490,000. We had about $10,000 of expenses before this project took a different direction. So we've got about $480,000 dedicated right now and set aside for a parking lot or alley improvements. And so that isn't quite enough to start from scratch and hire an engineer and a consultant to come in and do everything. So we're trying to kind of piecemeal a project and see what we can get biggest bang for our buck kind of thing with this parking lot, where city staff are kind of taking the lead as a general contractor in this case. What we're wanting direction and concurrence for council is that we go ahead and proceed. We've started to get quotes, we've started to line up things, but until we kind of get the final go-ahead, we're kind of at a stopping point until we get that direction. And one of the reasons we're bringing it to you now is we're proposing that the pavement, the concrete work itself, be change ordered into the State Street project. We did get unit prices from that contractor, very favorable. As you'll recall, a meeting or two ago, we opened bids on another project in town. That contractor was also the low bid for smaller quantity pavement, and these prices that they gave us were actually lower than those. So like I said, very good bids on the concrete surfacing. We've done some coordination with electric. Both the tornado siren that's out there right now, that was relocated after the tornado and the demolition of the Senior Citizen Center. For those that are OCD like me a little bit, the pole is not straight, and that bugs me. So I'd like to get that corrected if we're going to be in there doing work. Take that opportunity as well to eliminate the overhead power and bring that underground to the pole. We also are going to be shifting and widening the alley or driveway all the way to the west side of the parking lot. There's a loading dock there on the CenturyLink building, and so at times people are not able to get in and out of their stalls currently. So increasing the width of that drive was always planned with the State Street project. So we're going to be shifting some of the pavement markings at the same time. We've looked at lighting. We're proposing some lighting. There'll be 2 dual headlights and 2 single headlights that we're proposing with this project. We also are taking a look at the 2022 implementation of the zoning that was redone. That ordinance requires that all parking lots, new parking lots that abut property lines, to be set back 5 feet from the property line and also have a curb around them. So we would take that opportunity to do the same thing here. The green areas that I have up on the screen would become landscaping that Park and Rec would assist us with in getting that beautified, landscaped, similar again to the parking lot behind the Tremont for a feel of those areas. And then we've also coordinated with some of the adjacent property owners. 104 North Center Street has, rightfully so as a property owner, decided not to participate in the project, so we'll be going ahead and placing the curb that's required by our code along that property line. We do have willingness, cooperation from 104B and 106 North Center. They will be replacing the surfacing adjacent and behind their buildings on their property at the same time as this project at their cost. Just kind of coordinating together. There's a little bit of a drainage issue out there right now, so we'll be able to correct all of that as we do this project. So like I said, I think we've got the pieces in place. I think the biggest concern I have right now is the lead time on the light pole bases that we're still working through. But if council gave us direction tonight to go ahead and proceed, I'd start getting materials ordered, bring back a formal change order on the concrete work at the next meeting. And then we'd hopefully be able to break ground and get construction going this year. We've coordinated with the Emergency Food Box, who owns the grass lot just north of this parking lot, as well as 2 rows of parking there. We'll be able to utilize their parking lot during the construction of this. This would not start construction until Center Street was fully opened back up in the north-south direction. And I'll open it up for questions.
Heather, when I went, was it yesterday? I went and passed by this, and I noticed that there was, 104 North Center Street. You can kind of tell, like it's kind of rough, and I, when I've entered this parking lot. Their entrance is level with the street, with Center Street. And then, so would that be the entrance to this parking lot, the new one, or would it be more south?
Yeah, so right now there's currently 2 curb cuts on Center Street. One that a lot of people use that's actually on their property, and there is one just south of that. So on this picture here, if you can see my mouth, this would become the drive for the public parking lot in this area. They don't have it out there currently, but in the past I know they've had a food truck parked here, and they would still have their drive entrance to park the vehicles that they want in their location.
Yeah, and then I was wondering, was it that they, because 106 and 104, they're a part of the project, and they're using the same contractor the city would, and then just paying their part? Okay. And then so 104 said that they wouldn't want to do that?
Correct. We talked to them about them doing their project at the same time concurrently with the city. We also talked to them about potentially the city purchasing the portion of their property that was outside the building walls to make that a part of the city's parking lot. We also talked about an easement with them where the city would make that part of the public parking lot but not actually own the property and give them designated parking. And at that time, they were not interested in any of those options.
Okay, I'm just kind of thinking the whole thing is going to look super nice, and just a good chunk is just going to look a little bit rougher, and so then I was just wondering about the entrance, because I think we all use the one that's on their property, so right now, but okay.
Yeah, following the zoning code, we're proposing not a full 6-inch curb because I suspect somebody late at night will attempt to drive over it. So we're proposing a 4-inch sloped curb too. So that'll help provide a little bit of the designation so that the public that use the public parking lot will be able to tell that this is really where we need to be. Maybe we can even look at a signage or something or other there as well.
It didn't take too long for somebody in that really nice parking lot south of the Tremont to miss on that one and cause a lot of damage.
Your Honor, if I may. I think this is a great idea. I think while we got the contractor there, we've got everything tore up anyway. This parking lot has been on our plate for 2, 3, 4 years, I think. We have the funding for it. I say go ahead, get going.
Anybody disagree? I'm seeing the heads nodding yes. Can't see the 2 on the phone.
Well, I definitely agree.
Jeff, you want to weigh in too?
I agree. Let's do it.
I don't think you need a motion. Go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think that brings us to the conclusion. So 6:27 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming.